Welcome to another edition of Your Impact Attack. That's right, it's your Impact Attack. You guys are the perpetrators, we're just the curators. And who is we? Well, I am Jamie Williams, sometimes known in certain circles as the vet. And with me, as always, is my tag team partner, Brandon. Brandon, what's going on
What is up?
today? Yes.
Not a whole lot. You know, one of the things that it's been kind of depressing for me is just seeing like what American wrestling has turned into.
Mm-hmm.
But I've kind of started looking at it in a new way where it's kind of like, watch it like it's Mystery Science Theater 3000. Just like have fun with it. Like take it for what it is. A
Hmm.
parody of what it once was.
Yeah. Yeah, that is. If you look at it in its terms of a parody, a lot of things make a lot more sense and are a lot easier to digest. Um, we don't always have a couple of puppets or whatever to make jokes with in a movie theater while we're watching it, but I, I I think what it would be in the case of people that just don't have to do like weekly review shows or things of that nature is I would just leave it and never think about it again and just chalk that up as a time in your life, like your 20s in college, it's experimentation, things like, yeah, I watched wrestling once in the 80s, but you know, like the ladies man line, yeah, once in the 80s, but I did not enjoy it, like I'm not gonna um, I could compare it to that, but unfortunately, we do have to talk about it. So,
Yeah,
uh,
we will definitely get into that.
yeah, we'll get
Oh
into it.
boy.
Some people already know what we're talking about. But those people, like that's who we're here for. That's what we serve here. It's their impact attack after all. So who is they? I mean, whose impact attack is this today?
Let's acknowledge them. We got Lab Rat in the house. We got Javi Uchida. We got Lisbeth. How you guys doing tonight? Whoop whoop.
Yeah, yeah, they are here and they are ready, and I think we are ready. I guess I don't really have like there's not much news, but there is kind of a piece of news. Um, the problem is there's not that much news on the piece of news. Um, and that will tie into probably like what we could consider the centerpiece of our show. Okay, because something is going to occur on this episode of Impact that we're going to talk about. It's going to be most of what we have to talk about. And one of the principals involved in this, in this match, with is Steve Macklin. Okay, that we like to call Burt Macklin. Um, but the news is that he is out with an injury
Oof.
and will be missing Slammiversary.
Did they say how he got injured? They just know that he's injured.
Yes, they say they say due to an undisclosed injury, according to that's just that's just Impact just announcing. Are there? I don't know if the announcement says undisclosed injury, but that's what the article is saying here. So on top of the fact that again, and I want to let us spend time on that whenever we get to it. But on top of whatever they doing what they did, now one of the people's not even gonna be in the match, so it kind of was, you know, for nothing. Not that they could have known. Um,
Right, because it was taped weeks before the injury happened.
yeah, so it's not like we can really blame them on that aspect, but it just goes to show you like that's just the cherry on top of a shit Sunday. So anyway, um,
So what do you think they're gonna do? Would you? I mean, my best guess would be to turn it into a handicap with PCO and D'Amore against Bully, or have him find a partner, or just have D'Amore be in PCO's corner and be a one-on-one.
Well, they're just gonna replace him. I don't know with who. They'll bring somebody up, and
The only problem is there's not really anybody who makes sense in storyline. I guess you
no.
could say Moose, but he's already busy.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't want him anywhere near this.
Yeah, he needs to be as far away from this shit show as possible.
Yeah, but exactly right. No one has anything to do with this. Certainly, no one would have the investment into this that would make any sense. So they're just gonna have the match anyway, dude. I don't care what. I don't care if you know. See if Macklin is
as ridiculous as this sounds, that angle could be their way out of the match completely.
it could, but they're not gonna do that. I just think I just think that if I was in this situation and Macklin's hurt, I'm like, look, I don't care if you're hurt. We're gonna use this. We're gonna say somebody hurt you or whatever, or like we're gonna turn into an angle for that. You know, like I don't know. You gotta. If
Again,
whatever the injury is, you gotta be able to be involved long enough for us to take you out or something like that.
Right.
I don't care if that's Scott D'Amore hitting you with a car on the way in or whatever.
As crazy, and again, as crazy as that sounds, that would actually make sense with the story they're telling and the angle they shot. That would make sense. Just D'Amore losing his mind and trying to kill him.
Yeah. So,
but then again, where do you go from there? D'Amore's obviously going to be facing charges.
Yeah, none of this is a good idea. Yeah, I just
again just trying to think of a way out of a bad idea.
Well, that's not our job. We wouldn't have came up with such a bad idea. We shouldn't be bailing them out anyway. You know, we ain't throwing this lifeline, okay? What if we fall overboard later? We're not going to give you one.
Ooh, how about this? Scott D'Amore pushes Steve Macklin in front of an oncoming train.
Yeah, there you go. And let's film it. You know, we'll make sure we get multiple angles on it, and we don't have the special effects to like really pull that off. So I'm sorry, you're just gonna have to eat a hit with a train. Sorry, Macklin.
You know how to bump, right? You're good.
Yeah, it's fine. So, well, some people don't even know what we're talking about yet. So we'll save that for later. We'll talk. We'll kind of, revisit this and deal with it when we get there. But yeah, as far as like the news goes, that's really like the biggest major story for Impact lately. Even if I were to just look back at, the other stuff that they're posting here, we're talking about something about, Rebel explains how Christy Hemme made her an Impact performer instead of a makeup artist. That's not news. It's just a story clip from a podcast. Why Kurt Angle says Samoa Joe could have been used better in TNA and WWE. Do we really need Kurt Angle to tell us why he could have been used better? Does it matter? Just use him better. The end. There's no, I don't know. This one looked interesting. Like when you click on it not only because of what the headline says as a clickbait headline, but just because you think you're going to get like a real good explanation, especially considering his current role. But why Alan Angels felt like he was, quote, walking on eggshells in AEW. And all he basically said was like, oh, well, you just don't want to piss off the wrong guy, when you're at a place, It's like, shut the fuck up, Alan
like
Angels.
Any place you work at.
Yeah. And what that's really saying is like, Impact Wrestling isn't important enough to be nervous at. Like when you got guys doing what they're doing in Impact Wrestling for Slammiversary matches, you don't have to worry about yourself. You can't shit the bed nearly as hard as everybody else can, so I'm good. That's
No.
basically, I'll just come in here and do jobs. That's basically what he's saying with that. So yeah,
Pay me,
and
pay
then
me.
after that, it's just the same old stories that we had last week that I didn't read. So yeah, no big news there. And nothing really major either. When I was on the Monday locker room again, as this morning, as we're recording this, and Ben was struggling to pull some headlines for us to talk about. So just all in all, generally a slow news week, day, whatever. Um, Senator Senator Chuck Schumer is looking into Logan Paul's Prime Energy drink as far as the FDA is concerned. Like, what do you mean? Why
Bro,
shouldn't?
do not even get me started on the FDA. Do not even get me started on the FDA. But a racket where a bunch of rich people pay off a regulatory body to push their products and shut everybody else down.
Right? Yeah. He's also. It's also funny because here in this article, and this actually has some relevance because of my during WrestleMania week, I had a bottle of Prime hydration drink as a special guest on my podcast as a joke, because of that whole thing, and because of like KSI dressing up as the bottle and getting splashed by Seth freaking Rollins and all that other stuff. So I had a bottle and I was using it as a prop, if you remember. Um, so that's how it ties in, and yeah, so the guy's trying to say that it's a health concern because of high levels of caffeine, but it's like there's two primes. One is a hydration drink, more like Gatorade, and the other one's like an energy drink.
You know it's a
So I don't
bigger
even think that this guy, I don't even think this guy Chuck Schumer knows the difference, or that there is two different versions of the energy drink because he's concerned for the kids. The kids.
you know it's a bigger health hazard? Sending people's children to die in foreign wars that don't have jack shit to do with us.
Oh, that's okay, just as long as there's not too much caffeine. Like, we want those soldiers to be on caffeine, right? So, so yeah, yeah, I don't
So
know.
yeah, impact.
Yeah, Impact, Impact Wrestling. Well, we can definitely get into Impact. Of course, I think that we owe it to everybody to correct the mistakes of last week before we start on this week. So, do you have a new punching up Impact ready to go?
Unfortunately, I apologize. This week was very busy dealing with family stuff, family and personal stuff. So I apologize, but I will have a edition of that up sometime this week.
All right, that is perfectly okay. We all have much more important things to do than to armchair quarterback a fourth-rate wrestling program. So you take your time with that and you concentrate on the real important things in life. Chris Winland asks, do you prefer Impact over any or all three AEW shows? The in-ring action and storylines are booked better in Impact. At least they are consistent for what it's worth.
For all of Impact's problems, I will say this: they do a better job than AEW when it comes to consistency and actually paying attention to their storylines. As ridiculous as their storylines are, they actually put an effort into continuity.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, we're gonna delve into some things that even AEW doesn't bother to do to the fans. But do I prefer it? Hell no. I actually find that just because consistency is nice, but that just sounds like coping, doesn't it? Like when you're talking about the consistency of something, no one's really equating that to its enjoyment. Like you know, if people are out there saying like, God, that new Indiana Jones movie, oh my God, I loved it. It was so consistent. You got to go out and see it because of consistency, you know, with the old trilogy and the fourth movie, the consistency is just, you're never gonna have a conversation like that in your life. Also, you know, you might bring that up as a talking point when you're running something down, like yeah, it just wasn't consistent. Like I didn't feel like Indiana Jones was the same as he was in the other movies. Just not consistent. You might say that, but you're going to talk about a lot of other things. You're not going to praise consistency unless it's like far down the list of somebody asking you to make a list of things you love about something, right? It's just not the thing that's going to hype. It's going to hype people up, right? When I sit down to watch Impact, it's usually, let's put it this way. By the time I had to do the Monday locker room this morning, I still had a match left to watch on the episode of Impact. So we recorded at 8:30 Eastern time in the morning. So we got done around 10, like, you know, around 10 something, and I still had to go watch the main event of Impact because I hadn't even finished watching it. And this aired on Thursday. So that shows you exactly how excited I am to get to this, to watch it, to cover it. I didn't even know it was going to be on it. It's just what I normally do because, damn it, I just don't care about this show. If it didn't have Moose on it, I'd be like, you know what? I'm going to ask for reassignment. I'm just going to do a different show and Brandon's on his own. But I just, damn. So in that, if that answers your question, yeah, like when I wake up on a Saturday, I don't get to watch Collision because I got to go to work and it's starting while I'm still sleeping and everything. So I got to kind of watch some of my lunch break and everything. But I actually want to watch it on my lunch break. Like I'm like, all right, let's see what happened to Collision. What did CM Punk do? What did Jay White do? What did Powerhouse Haas do? What are all these people doing? And just because I'm not always excited about whatever everybody does on a given night, I'm excited to check it out. Does that make sense? Like before I know what happens, I want to know what happens. After I seen it, maybe I'm like, it's not kind of what I wanted, or oh, that was really good. That's good, but like the interest is peaked. I want to see that's what AEW has over pretty much every other company. Because for good or bad, you're going to be like, either you're going to be like, boy, I can't wait to see what they do this week, or, oh, I can't wait to see what they do this week because it's going to be crazy. You know, like it's either for better or worse, you want to see. And there's people there that are really talented and you want to see them. That's kind of true in Impact, but it's far fewer and farther between of talents that I'm really excited to see. And then the ones that we are like, when was the last time we were like, God damn, this was a great episode for Moose? Like, do we ever say that?
Not since he was champion.
No, we're more
and even then it was still reaching.
No, Moose is like Atlas, bro. He's holding up Impact like on his shoulders, like, God, I need a break. Where's Hercules? You know, like that. This is like that. That's not, you know, it's not the same thing. So anyway, that's a long way to answer that question. But I think it's important because, you know, I think it's so weird how I also find it strange how many fans, like. The way they look at AEW is almost like they're offended that it exists, because the way they act is just like they're pointing out stuff and bring up talking points about a wrestling company that just don't get brought up in normal fan sort of conversations, like even about wrestling. You know, like I think we've talked on this show, Impact Attack, about, I'm sorry, when we were watching the Monday Night Wars, did we go to school and talk about the ratings for the week?
Nope.
I don't remember us talking about which company got lower ratings and trying to berate whoever liked WCW if they didn't win that week. I don't really remember having that kind of conversation. I don't remember talking about the demo for sure. I also don't like. I don't remember talking about like Eric Bischoff's got his head up his ass. He doesn't know how to run a wrestling company. I don't know. Would you ever see Vince McMahon put on a karate gi and like get in the ring? Like, did we talk? We did not have these conversations that these
Nope.
fans are having now when they're trying to disparage whatever wrestling company they don't like.
I did not start watching wrestling until like the tail end of the Attitude Era, but I remember hearing kids in school talking about it, and they were saying like, "Hey, did you guys watch it last night when Rock threw Stone Cold over the bridge?"
Mm-hmm. Yep. Hey, they drove a cement mixer in and ruined Vince McMahon's Corvette, or Austin drove a Zamboni in, or the NWO invaded the thing and threw Rey Mysterio into the trailer, or they're like talking about whatever crazy things happen, and they were tuning in to see all those personalities and things of that nature. They certainly were not embroiled in the day-to-day workings of the people that ran the company and how much business they were doing. Like,
Oh,
were they taking pictures of any arenas of like saying like, look, we sold out this night? Like,
yep. Yeah, I remember it was, "Hey, did you watch Nitro? Sting just joined the Wolfpack."
mm-hmm. Yeah, everybody was marking out back then. Like, they were just ridiculous about it. But now everybody's a business expert. Everybody's
Nope. No
a
one
media expert. You
No
know,
one, yeah, no one wants to be a fan anymore.
yeah, and that's fine. Um, because let's face it, the world is different than it was back then. And now you're getting a place where people can just say, like, you used to have to go to some little private corner of the internet where these people had a message board and you could like get into arguments there. You could still kind of do that in comment sections here and there, but or on Twitter or whatever else your social media platform of choice, or if you go to Wrestling Inc. and get in the comments there, whatever you want to do. Like, there's still those type of things, but what we didn't have was like an abundance of necessary. We didn't have the what we call the dirt sheets. They were not like a centralized driving force in like people's narratives. So it wasn't as big of an industry. Like, there wasn't only so much money you could make.
Here's
Besides Wade Keller and Dave Meltzer, there wasn't enough people to to really have like a voice in the space, and they certainly weren't. Wade and Dave were certainly never like getting in the ring and trying to like make a mockery of this shit like people like Sean Ross Sapp or whatever. They, that's another thing that's different, uh so yeah, I don't know.
And I think another thing too is a lot of the people that are in the business now are people who grew up reading Dave and Wade and being influenced by that. So that's what you're seeing on TV.
Yeah, and marking out for Nitro and Raw back in the day. Like it's I don't know. It's uh it's a difficult position for me to be in because I'm like I'm sort of like in the middle of all of it, and I don't really like any of it. I whenever Big Ray would do the 3 count and bring up some thing where he's like, this person said this on Twitter and this person said this. Well, what do you think? Like, I don't care is what I think. How many times can I ask? How many times can somebody try to ask me about Tony Khan's supposed unprofessionalism? I'm like, what do you expect? He's just like any other guy with money. He does whatever he wants. Why are you or like or when people are saying like oh, you would never see Vince McMahon doing this. It's like, yeah, you'd see him like being on trial for the federal government, or you'd see him getting accused of rape by the employees and yeah, those are things that you wouldn't see Tony Khan ever doing. So, don't try to be like the professionalism police when you're just some guy with a Twitter account. It's weird. It's fucking weird that you care, So, I don't know. I guess is that just trying to ascribe importance to yourself and your place in the world, like by pointing out things that as if you have never has nobody else has ever said it. That's the other thing. They boldly will tweet something like thousands of people hadn't already tweeted it, and you saw it, and you're just joining in, not like you had an original thought.
I think there's a lot of this going on. So I know it's this way for me, is that we remember what wrestling used to be, how great it used to be, and we want it to be that again. And seeing it what it is now, it's just like, what the fuck?
Oh. Well, one of the reasons that it is the way it is now, it actually kind of has to tie in with Chris Winland's question, because, the 3 AEW shows, for the most part,
yeah,
you have
oversaturation.
Not only is it oversaturated, but again, I think we talked about this, the pressure of producing live content that many hours a week. It's one thing if you are expected to come up with 5 hours of content a week and you get to sort of tape it and edit it however you want. And if there's a mistake, you can deal with that. You can shuffle things around. You can make those adjustments with your tape shows. And you don't have the time to make those continuity changes and adjustments. So, for example, Chris Winland's saying they're consistent in impact. Well, if you tape a month's worth of content, you should be consistent. Because once you have all that content in the can, it's just a matter of editing it together like a film and putting it out there. It's already done. You just have to put it together. And even with that, how many times do we point out the inconsistencies that they had? Whereas it's like AEW doesn't even have time to address things. Like, they've got to move on to the next thing. So it's really just a case of, let's try this. Did it work? No? Okay. Well, maybe next time. So everybody constantly has a chance to point out the flaws of things that are being experimented with, because they're all waiting with their arms crossed to be impressed, by AEW, who's doing live content 5 hours a week. I mean, Rampage is taped, but you know what I mean. It's like they're doing so much, and a lot of it's live, and they got to have a new show every single week. Impact shoots a bunch of stuff, and then they chop it up, and then they portion it out. So it's easier to be consistent that way, and in many ways they're still not consistent, and we talk about that every week if you listen to us. So that's one thing, and it's also difficult to it's difficult to have quality because you don't have the extra time to come up with the ideas. Like when NXT was taped the same way Impact is taped, that was the best wrestling show in America. Was that mid 2000s era NXT, because you had, like I said, you had the taped content that you could edit and feature people the way you needed to, and do it that way. Once USA was like, hey, we want 2 more hours of live content, and NXT had to go live for 2 hours, not 1 hour, 2 hours. They were doing a 1 hour show, and then they had to go to 2 hours live instead of 1 hour taped. Yeah, that's going to change the quality of your show drastically, and it's never going to be for the better. It doesn't matter how good it is. Just saying, like, whatever you think is great, it's never going to be that great. It's like, if you're the best cheesecake chef in the world, and someone says, hey man, I want you to make one of these as big, like, I want you to make this cheesecake that you're making that everybody loves, but I need you to make it, twice as big, and I need you to do it 4 times faster. Go. I'm sorry, your chef skills are going to be put into question because people are going to taste this larger Rush cheesecake and be like, it's not as sweet as the ones I was been used to getting, right? Like,
Yep.
you just can't do it. You literally can't do it.
You're fucking with the recipe.
Fucking with the recipe. So that's another thing. I think for Impact to be in the position they're in, I would like it to be significantly better than it is, because they enjoy the luxury of having a taped program and they have talented people. And instead, we get this, what we're about to talk about. So let's get into it.
Whoop whoop, let's do it.
If that's not a transition, if that's not a segue, I don't know what is, but it's better than what they got. So anyway, we're going to open up with a recap of Scott D'Amore's career. That's just set the tone for what we're about to be into here tonight. I mean, they recapped other things too, but that's what they started with. I think they showed that newspaper again, you know.
Yeah, of him wrestling The Rock and he's Intercontinental Champion.
Yep. Yeah, I touched The Rock once. Hey, I touched Cody Rhodes once. I only bring it up once every couple months. I don't start every Impact Attack with a recap of the time and the story of where I wrestled Cody Rhodes. So I could if you guys want. You want me to tell you the story again? Yeah, well, tune in next week. So, all right. So we're going to start out with Fat Eddie versus Kazarian. Like, we're going to continue this story. Now, this is a classic mid 2000s era SmackDown style of booking where they show you the match a bunch of times in order to get you to buy the match. All right. So, you know, with this, I'm not going to lie to you. I really wasn't paying attention because I'm like, I don't care. So I'm just going to be honest. I don't care about this at all. This is exactly what I'm saying. If that further answers Chris Winland's question about AEW, then, you know, let me please point out that I made sure to set aside time to watch Punk versus Joe from Collision, and I'm not going to watch this shit at all. So I didn't pay attention. However, I did see the finish, and I got a lot to say about that. But before we get into the finish sequence, you know, Brandon, what did you see with this? You know, in general, the match.
One thing I do like, so we do not see this enough, is that they're actually like with Eddie and Alicia, they're actually committing to the whole ride or die gimmick. Like they're doing exactly what they're supposed to do. Have her get involved. Yeah, have her get involved. Do what she can to help her man out, and just basically be by his side and support him any way she can in a heel manner. And they might have done a little too much in this match, but at least they're committing to the bit and trying to get it over.
That was a very nice way to put a positive spin on things. And of course, the match itself was fine. I really, you know, like I said, I didn't literally not watch the match. I don't want you guys to think that. It's just that, like, after in my life, I must have seen between 150 and 200,000 matches. Okay? I know what a fucking wrestling match is, and I don't even need to watch it to know exactly what it is. Like, there will be times when, like, I've heard a wrestling match, and I've been like, you know, okay, I get it. And then I would have to, for some reason, go back and rewatch it, and then actually pay attention to it. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I heard in my mind's eye saw. So, like, I get it. I know it sounds arrogant, but I don't need to watch a match to see a match, if that makes sense. So I know that these guys had a decent match for a TV match, match 2 of a proposed trilogy, spoiler alert. So they're just not going to do anything completely stupid, but nonetheless, not enough that I need to really sit and break it down for you guys. But now this I will break down because I had a problem with this. To quote the great Stevie Ray, I got a problem with that, bruh. So they do a spot where the ref gets bumped. Okay. Now, Brandon, have you done a lot of ref bumps as a ref?
I did a few.
Okay, kind of like can you kind of talk about some of them, like the different ways they would get into it? Like, for example, just some of the ones you remember taking. Like, how did they bump you? You know?
The one that comes to mind immediately was I got hit in the back with a chair because it's like, we want you down the rest of the match.
Okay, now how did they get into that? Did they have somebody like standing there and then they moved and then they hit you instead, or did they specifically go for you to knock you out to put you out for the rest of the match?
I think it was a thing where we were building where I kept like uh, getting involved and stopping them from cheating. So they just said, fuck you, and took me out specifically. So it's like, now we can fight forever.
Bold, bold, indie, but bold. Um, all right, so that's one, and then
Oh, I actually played in the finish where there was a guy who was involved with all those guys, came in, ripped my shirt off, threw it on, and then counted the three for the faces.
right, that's all it takes to you just need a striped shirt. Like anybody in the audience that was wearing stripes that night could be. They have to be vertical. Like, is that the legality of it? Like, if you're wearing
I think
like
so.
the Beetlejuice, that won't count. You got to
No.
have like the vertical. Okay, I'm just making sure. So that's a good example, though. Like, actually, that's perfect. We don't need to even go much further into that um, because what you're describing there is like they needed you removed from the situation, and with all due respect, you're not exactly like the Great Khali. So if a chair to the back could reasonably, we could think that that might put you out for a significant period of time in a wrestling match. Okay, this ref, they just did the spot where like he was in the corner and they ran into him. Okay, so he
I,
fell over and like was leaning sort of like in the corner, but like towards the ropes. And I went back and I estimated based on the time that elapsed on the television. Again, this is an edited program, so it could have been way more actually. It could have been a little bit longer, but it was about 60 seconds total that this guy was out of commission because some men sort of bumped into him. This would be the kind of thing that if this happened to you in any real life situation, you'd be like, "Hey man, watch it." But this guy was completely incapacitated, although conscious, because he's on his knees, leaning towards the ramp, like he's facing the ramp on his knees and bent over, and looking toward the ropes but not leaning on the ropes. So that's where he is now. They do like a full sequence after this. I don't remember all the details of it, but it gets to the point where they're going up to the top. They're about to do something off the top, like maybe a superplex, and Lish comes in with Kenny and hits Frankie. Okay, and this would have been, she gets in the ring, hits Frankie, goes crack, and then the referee is like, if he would have turned his head like 15 degrees to the right, he would have seen it. But he just purposely, actively chose not to see it as he's looking the other direction, um, and all this shit. So he does that, and Frankie gets pinned after that. Like the referee miraculously starts paying attention the moment that he gets rolled up, or whatever.
I always felt that the way that the ref bumps are set up and produced are always like ridiculous and unrealistic.
Right.
Like I can understand like a giant guy crushes you. Yeah, you might be on your knees heaving for a few seconds, but then you're going to get to your feet.
Yes. Well, not here. Apparently this, and then, remember, this is the ref, if I'm not mistaken. This is the ref that's going back and looking at the tapes and making sure that Zicky Dice is calling things right down the middle. So we know that the refs are doing tape review on all the refs, and I would assume that if the ref that's doing tape review is in the ring for a match, he's got the second in command ref watching his match just to make sure everything is, on the up and up. So If he's physically unable to turn his head 15 degrees to the right, and if his ears are still ringing from getting crunched in the corner, so he couldn't hear the loud crack of Kenny against Frankie, then I would expect a ref to come back and reverse this decision later in the back. I just think that's only fair, but we're not going to get that here. Instead, Eddie's going to get a win that we have to protect Frankie Kazarian. It's important to protect Frankie Kazarian because, after all, he did bet on himself to come back here. So we can't just have him taking a clean loss to one of our major wrestlers. No way. We got to make sure his wife gets involved. We got to make sure that, there's a kendo stick. We got to make sure there's a ref bump. We got to make sure that Killer Kowalski is smiling down from heaven and approving this whole thing. Like, this is just, the lengths they're going to just for this opening match. Like, the more you think about it, the more I just want to, like, again, beg for reassignment and be like, yeah, I think I've done all I can do for Impact Attack. It's time to move on. But, I hear Light the Fuse is looking for... I love AEW. But anyway, so that was that. We're all evened up. And we'll revisit that in a second. But is there anything else you'd like to add on this whole situation to start off the show?
The spot they did with the DVT on the apron could have very well been used to have been a better spot to finish the match and further the story. You could have had the thing where Eddie being taken on a stretcher and Alicia screaming at Frankie saying he took it too far.
Yep. And she could have said, Killer Kowalski never would have allowed this. Yeah. Labrat also saying, so Fat Eddie was sweating butter and Alicia was hungry. That's why she kept kissing him. Yes, that is true. That kept happening. That's as close as we're gonna get to feeding Alicia. She's still very, very hungry, and she's gonna have to settle for butter sweat right now, which is good. Butter's high in calories. Here's who's not high in calories. Goldberg 98. He's here. He's cutting a promo on Lio Rush saying, you don't just get to come in here and cut the line, but you know what? I'm gonna give you a match, a Slammiversary. So yeah, you can go ahead and cut the line. Like, this is complete nonsense what he's saying. Like, he immediately turns around and contradicts himself. So great job. I don't know if he wrote this or had anything to do with it. Yeah. Let's hope so. Yeah, did you notice that what he was saying was a direct contradiction, and again, not how you would kind of want your babyface to look in this situation? Hey, I'm a glaring idiot. I mean, I guess Goldberg was kind of an idiot. Like, he did smash through a windshield with his hand when, but that was a shoot idiot move, not like a storyline idiot move. Storyline, he was supposed to be cool and powerful. So yeah, this was just I'm Chris Sabin, You don't get to do whatever you want, but you know what? Okay, you can do whatever you want. Yeah. All right. Any comments on that?
I had typical angry babyface promo.
Yeah, and stupid. So then we go after that. Because I guess that was like footage from last week. They captured that. They didn't want to show us. Then we go to this week, which is Lio Rush with Gia and no music underneath. And then he's starting to say some stuff. And then he's interrupted by Nick Aldis, who comes in and has a very businesslike proposition of, we don't have to be associated. We don't have to be friends. We don't have to be anything. Don't let anything stop you, but also don't let yourself get in my way, is basically what he's trying to say. So it's like a tenuous alliance between heels, and I kind of like that sort of layer to it. Again, as you pointed out, Nick Aldis trying to save this shit, trying to save this mess.
Dude, that Nick Aldis, in my opinion, is like the epitome of turning chicken shit into chicken salad.
Yeah, he's trying. But they're not even giving him chicken shit, really. Like he's not even allowing it to be served to him. You know what I mean? He's like, take this away. You know, like that kind of thing. He's not just, you know, Moose is over here like furiously with a chef's hat, just like sweating, you know, and Nick Aldis is like, get that out of my face. I'll cook everything from scratch, thanks.
You give me that, I send it back.
Yeah, so that's what's going on here. It's not quite the same, but I get what you're saying. Like he's, you know, in my opinion, just sort of, you know, if you want to tune in to watch this, I'm not going to rename the show to the Aldis, but I'm just saying like, it's nice to have another professional wrestler looking guy on the show acting like a professional wrestler. If only it were Aldis and Moose instead of Moose and Myers. If only, you know, we could get rid of a guy that just claims he's the most professional wrestler as a gimmick, which means nothing in a kayfabe sense. And if we could just replace him with a guy like Nick Aldis who's saying, you know, Moose, what are we doing here, brother? You know, like you have got to be, you know, that would be a much more interesting scenario. It's almost like the Apollo Creed to Rocky type thing of like, what are we doing? Except that Apollo Creed is still like a #1 contender. So now you have that intrigue of, you know, eventually these guys are going to want the same thing. And, you know, that's interesting. But
right, and you saw him fight as rivals, so now you're going to see him fight as friends.
Right. So instead we get Lio Rush, which is good. Lio Rush doesn't need the help. He knows how to get over. Moose doesn't need the help. He just needs the material.
Yeah.
And
everything you said last week about Lio Rush, I saw it tonight.
Right. Yes, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, good. He's making me look smart. Thank you, Leo. Yeah, he's already been doing this kind of work. You know what I mean? To have to deal with what he's been given and make that chicken salad and that lemonade.
This character, this personality that he's showing is brilliant. He's doing fantastic with it. I enjoy it. Yeah. And I loved Aldis's line where he said, "Not here to make friends, here to make history."
Right. That's a good line. I wonder if that can be on a t-shirt on you know, shopimpact.com or whatever. So Frankie Kazarian is you know, he's in the lights here. I'm not going to lie to you. There are lights here. More lights on this show than ever before. And this is where it starts. He's giving a sarcastic congratulations to Eddie Edwards. And of course he's got to invoke the name of Killer Kowalski. You can't do a promo here in this program without that. And he proposes, you know, like a rubber match with Tracy Brooks. Now I know how it sounds if I say rubber match with Tracy Brooks, but it's not that. It's not what you're thinking. It's actually, you know, he's talking about bringing his own wife who has a history of Impact to sort of even the odds.
And again, makes perfect sense.
Yes. Now, do we want to see it? No. But at least, you know, makes sense. So get that wife a payday. Now, if you bring in your wife like that, do you get an extra payday or you split the payday with her? It's Impact. So
that's honestly a good question. I would have to assume that they both get individually paid.
Yeah, but is the total whatever it would have been if they just paid him? Like,
that is a great point. If they are smart, it would be way more than that. It's like, nope, two talent, 2 appearances.
Right. I think they just shave off a chunk of Frankie's paycheck and give it to her in a separate paycheck. That's what I would expect them to try to do.
Hopefully Frankie and Tracy are smarter than that.
Let's hope. Because that's the thing. Like, can you challenge the Impact payoff? Like, Frankie, house is a little light. Sorry. like, I don't know. Can you like? He bet on himself, so I don't know. It's just sometimes when you bet on yourself, you come up short. So Elaborate asks, are they going to bring in a hologram of Killer Kowalski or what? No, there's not enough reliable footage to make a hologram out of, I don't think. So. All right. Then, we get a cold, Sammy Callahan and Rich Swann versus Singh and Shera. Just no entrances. Fuck all that. We ain't got time for that shit. Just get in the ring and have this match. And then, guess what happens? Guess who wins?
Singh and Shera?
No.
Damn
Afraid
it.
not. Afraid not. They almost had him. But Shera continues his streak of never winning a match ever right here on this episode of Impact. So, but the important thing is that Callahan and Swann are back, in sync as a team. And, I actually don't mind this for a couple of reasons. Number one, it was quick. Number two, I didn't have to sit through that Death Machine song. And three, they're taking a lot of the emphasis off of Sami Callihan, and that's always a good thing. So
right, it's more of the OVE collective now.
Right, yeah, just make him a side character on this show. Like, oh yeah, we forgot. Here's a match he did. We almost didn't have it, but we noticed we were running short, so we put in this match. That's how Sami Callihan should be treated. He should not be featured in a prominent angle. Or anything that would increase screen time. Any thoughts on this particular piece here?
I mean, it's just your typical get over match because where are they even going with OVE? Like last we saw them that there were might be something with them and Moose and Myers, but where's Fulton at? Where's Jake Christ at?
Oh, they had to get them off the show so they could afford that separate payday for Tracy Brooks coming up here. I don't know. But those are good rhetorical questions. I guess because weren't they at this set of tapings earlier? I think they were, or some of them were. So,
yeah, they did it like a 6-man tag match. I want to say, like the previous week, or at least.
Yeah, didn't
go
they?
back and look.
Yeah, I thought it was like the post pay-per-view episode. They had like a 6-man or something. I don't know.
Who knows, man? Who knows?
Yeah, and more importantly, who cares? So Gia finds the most professional wrestling gods. So this is our chance to see Moose here, and she manages to sort of disrupt their, already shaky chemistry by asking a certain question. And so Moose kind of storms off, and Myers has to chase him like an apologetic boyfriend or something. Not the best use of Moose, but I will just begrudgingly have to accept it. Which again ties into what we were discussing earlier about, like, hey, I'm tuning into AEW because I want to see certain people and what they do, and whether or not I get exactly what I wanted there, I almost never get what I want here. And how many times do you keep going back to the restaurant and eating the chicken shit when you ordered a chicken salad? Eventually, you just find a new restaurant, right?
I mean, at this point, we should be happy to see Moose on screen, period.
We have to. We have to cope. We must cope. We must ingest the copium. And, but yeah, this was Moose, and the best thing I can say about this, besides that Moose appeared in a nice full suit looking very snazzy, is that there was no lighting. No RGB lighting here. On BTI, Santino tells I like this, so I wrote it down. He tells Dango, who's in the ring, from the ramp. He tells him that he said that at Slammiversary he's gonna serve him up a slice of grapple pie. Uh,
I
and
love that
it's gonna be topped with an ass of whip. So this is Santino. I love him. I love him so much.
Like he knows how to stay in character and be serious and turn it up when he needs to. Like that's why it makes him such a great performer.
Yeah. How do you be dead serious while still being hilarious? Well, here you go. Here's the guy.
Like he took lines that you should laugh at, but they're completely serious, and you want to see him beat the shit out of Dango.
Yes. Yes, you do. Grapple pie. Ass whip. Yeah, and then while he's doing that, Heath runs in and hits the wake up call. Just hits him. So great. That's great, I guess. Is Heath gonna have a match with Dango? Because
I'm guessing on the next Impact.
I couldn't remember if they did that during their match rundown, but so this is used to transition into the Dango vignette, which we get another one of these because if you catch lightning in a bottle, of course, what you're going to do is you're going to run outside with a bunch of bottles in your arms and try to catch all the lightning. And obviously, you're not going to be able to do it. So now at this point, it's already tired to me, and they've gone into like, in their attempt at parody, they are now like, they've gone beyond that, and they're just doing more business exposing stuff. The only reason that it doesn't matter is because it's about to be overshadowed by something that's so egregious that no one could even think about nitpicking this like I did. But just some of the stuff that he's saying, it's like, well, this wouldn't make any context other than or this wouldn't make any sense other than the context of professional wrestling being fake. So that automatically makes me have to, that would be my Shred-O-Matic 3000 script ripper, crumple, throw in the wastebasket thing.
And again, there are ways you can go about this angle with like, I believe that you can walk up to the fourth wall and put your nose up to it without going through it.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much. But things like, like him saying he hasn't watched wrestling since the, since the 90s, back
like,
when it was good.
Nobody's buying that. Nobody's buying that.
Yeah, that wasn't even one of the problems I had. That just gives you an idea of like where he's taking it. He's basically what he's doing is parodying things that you will see on the internet or narratives the narratives that we were talking about.
Basically trying to be like a Twitter contrarian edgelord.
Yeah, and from the perspective of what the fans probably perceive a grizzled veteran with a fanny pack to be like. So,
and we already got one of those in Swinger.
Right. Yes. Although So this would be like the slightly less ridiculous version of that, but still, I mean, eventually, what are you going to do, right?
Yeah, his delusional time period where he's trapped is a little bit more modern than Swingers is.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of modern, we got Angels in a match versus an octopus here. He's in there with an octopus. So the octopus, as you can imagine, will wrap his tentacles around Angels and slowly force him to just have to give up entirely. So he taps out to this octopus. It's 2 arms versus 8. There's no chance for Angels. And he taps out, and then he goes to shake hands with the octopus. Because he enjoys the sporting contest that he had with the octopus, and after all, despite whatever Dango's trying to say, this is a sport. So the better man won, and he goes to shake one of the octopus's 8 hands, and Diener doesn't like that, and he's not going to allow it. He's gonna like, no, you don't shake that octopus's hand. That's an octopus, And Angels is like, I'll do whatever the hell I want. If I want to shake hands with an octopus, I will. Yeah, it's my hot body. And then he shakes hands with the octopus and walks out. And Diener's just left to fume. And the octopus just sits there. And then that's the end. So what did you make of all this?
The big thing is like you could have made this match a lot shorter to get to where you needed to go, and it just seemed like
It was pretty short too, so
rushed, like super rushed, like we
like
went
Leo
through maybe
rushed.
a little bit. Like we went through like a month of story in 10 minutes. Like we could have had this match end with Diener trying to help uh, Angels, and he fucks up and costs him the match. And then you could just kept building from there. Or do something
Yes.
where it's like, see, let me show you why my way is best, and you need to listen to me. And it blows up in his face, and Diener loses. I'm sorry, and Angels loses.
Angels loses. We don't even need that because, that would just make it longer for us to sit through. Because even if they did that, we already know that. We already seen that. We already seen Angels be insubordinate. Like, this is just a further extension of what they're already doing.
This week, the design didn't need a match. They actually needed like a pre-taper vignette to kind of like be like, or something where Diener's like pulls him aside and be like, all right, what's going on in your head, man? And you have Angels be like, all right, this is what I got going on. And then and then you could have Diener be kind of like keep his ambiguous where his head's at, so you have something to hook for next week.
Yeah. Well, we didn't get that. They put all their skill points for vignettes into a different vignette, so we're not going to get it here. We're going to get a match.
Ooh, man.
And Labrat says Angels can't keep a friend or a job. Lol. And that's funny. All right. ABC and the Rascals discuss a title opportunity. Is my note. It's my literal note. I'm just reading it right off my phone there. I'm not adding anything. What do you think?
I mean, it's basically what it was.
Okay. And then we see what I thought may have been. I thought this may have been what was referred to because I was smartened up, and I was like, in the back, PCO has got a car battery and he's jumping himself. He's giving himself a little jump. And Scott D'Amore's like, yeah, do it.
And the first time I watched it, I thought, oh, wow, it can't get any worse than that.
Yeah,
I was
gotta be
wrong.
done.
I was fucking wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was like, when I saw that, I was like, oh, I get it. Frankenstein, electricity, just give himself a little juice.
Look real. The cables weren't even anywhere near his neck. They weren't anywhere near his neck.
No, but we got a little spark, a little sparky.
Like he was just just tapping him like near his neck. Like you could clearly see he wasn't even touching anywhere near him.
That's all we need. That's all we got to do. We don't need any more than that. We saw a spark.
And then Scott D'Amore just cheering him on while he's jumping himself with a car battery.
Yeah. Well, he's on a leave of absence, so he can't do anything about it. You just have to sit there and watch everything. So
how did Kane and Shane McMahon have a better car battery spot than this?
Well, I mean,
at least there was kind of like an intent there where Kane was like, all right, we know Kane is trying to like torture this guy, and that's a fucked up way of torturing somebody. So at least we know what they were trying to accomplish with that and what they were trying to get over. This is just like, what the fuck?
So Shane McMahon back then wasn't a reanimated corpse who had the sort of like the bolts on his testicles instead of his neck, and Kane wasn't just trying to give him a quick jump. That's not what happened back then. It's been a long time. I don't remember exactly.
But we never even saw like a need for him to recharge himself. It's just like a random scene in the back. Like, okay.
Yeah, let's get super hype.
Like, okay, maybe we had a thing where like he like powered down and like stopped moving and he had to jump him. Okay, but we never saw that.
Well, it was going to be a handicap match, and he was taking on none other than the Good Hands. And we all know how dangerous and talented the Good Hands are, so he probably thought he needed to make sure that, like, he was overcharged, right? I think that's what we get. Okay, so we get a package from Australia. We got to see the zoo and stuff, and so if you didn't see this was exactly what was featured on the Impact Down Under. And once again, thanks for Piers Austin last week coming on and sharing his experiences with us of doing that. That's great. Follow Piers Austin everywhere. He's got more stuff coming. So be sure to check him out.
And of course, they made sure to show videos of Macklin with his wife, with his babyface wife, petting animals before they did the whole thing with him later on.
Exactly. We want to know exactly what kind of a guy he is. They didn't show the naked kids with the twigs and everything, but I can understand them not wanting to, how that would be problematic on American television. So they made sure to leave that alone, but rightly so. And then we get, speaking of Deanna, it turns out she's hiding some lights in her dressing room too. Like that's probably where the rest of them were on this show because they're all in her dressing room. She's also hiding a cameraman in her dressing room just in case anybody walks in because they show Trinity coming down the stairs, down the hallway and knocking on the door. And Dion's like, come in. And we cut to her walking in. So she's got a cameraman too, just in case. Just in case. She's like, okay, turn it on. And then he turns it on and we go to Trinity coming in the door instead of going through the door. And then we get this little thing where... they have a thing and they say, hey, you said you're going to beat me and I don't like that. And she's like, I am going to beat you. And then they leave. I don't know. What did you make of this confrontation in quotes?
I'll keep saying this every time we see Trinity on screen. She is so much better in produced pre-taped segments. Like putting in front of a live mic, it sounds really robotic and she doesn't really know like what she wants to say. Like she's not that great off the cuff. Put her in one of these segments though, she'll knock it out of the park. I think she does very well. Like you put her in a produced environment.
Yep. And we spoke Piers Austin into existence. So
say his name and he appears.
I believe in Piers Austin. That's right. Piers Austin, the truth is in the building. Hello, Piers. Thanks again for last week. If you didn't hear us say it, we said it a couple of times, but we can never say it enough because we love Piers Austin. Everybody at HMG loves Piers Austin. And keep doing everything you're doing. Keep us updated. Everybody follow Piers Austin. Go ahead and see that Piers Austin right there on your screen if you're in the chat. Click that. It'll take you to his channel where he's got lots of cool stuff, shooting the shit uncensored. And, everything else he's working on is there. So, do that. And don't just take our word for it. Let him speak for himself, because he will. That's what he does. He speaks. That's kind of his thing. And our thing is kind of, my pleasure. It's an honor. Hoping to get the call up for the Friday or Monday locker room. Oh, yes. Yes. And he loves me. Yes. Oh, I'll do what I can. I'll put in a word for you, brother. I think you'd be good on the Monday or Friday locker room for sure. But, if you're a fan of pro wrestling and whenever you see it be a shadow of what it once was and it makes you sad, you may want to tune out for this one because... we're about to talk about the handicap match. Not so much the handicap match. More like the aftermath.
This whole thing was a handicap.
Yes, we're all handicapped now for having watched it. It's like that whole speech of like, everyone in this room is now dumber for having watched this. Yeah. At no point during this rambling, incoherent match did you... come anywhere near. Yeah, so
I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Yeah, and to use another quote from the movie The Punisher, starring Thomas Jane, God's gonna sit this one out. All right, so it's PCO versus the Good Hands in the handicap match, and D'Amore sits on commentary, so he can't keep the headset off his head even now. And then the Hands do their usual promo on the way down that leaves everybody relatively disinterested. And then the question I have is, was PCO always from Dead Body Island, or is that just a thing they started doing recently and I just never paid attention before, or what is that? And is that a real place? If there's any Canadians watching, You know, I don't know if Buckshot Kid is here. He's usually here. Uh, Dead Body Island, is that a real place? Does it sound real?
I think they may have mentioned that before. I'm not 100% sure.
I see.
But
Well,
it's got to be in Canada because he's the French Canadian Frankenstein after all.
well, yeah, they said it was in Canada. I forget if it was. They said it was Ontario or something, but whatever province it was, I couldn't be sure, but yeah, like yeah, and he again. It seems like again this could have been something that they've been doing, but seem like they're smearing more green face paint on him lately than they used to. Is that my imagination or
No, his face definitely looked more made up tonight.
okay? Liz says there's a Dead Man's Island. Well, that's not what they said. They said Dead Body Island. they they said Dead Body Island. Okay, I clearly heard that. Dead Man's Island makes sense. That sounds like a cool, you know, like chilling place. But this is
that would actually be a great place for him to hail from. Dead Man's Island. If it's a real place, fuck yeah.
but Dead Body Island. That just sounds like made up.
That's not like that's not that place that Logan Paul visited in Japan.
The whole Japan island is a Dead Body Island. But all right. So anyway, we're neither here nor there, I suppose. Scott D'Amore gets his shit in after the match, which of course you know PCO won it. I don't even have to, you know.
Yeah.
He did a dive. He did the apron senton thing and squished one of those guys. They look exactly the same, so I couldn't tell you which. So all this until so D'Amore's getting his shit in on both of those guys. Like, oh my God, look at Scott D'Amore. He used to be a wrestler. Didn't you watch the last 3 weeks of this show? And then you know, Bully comes out down the ramp, and then while he's up at the ramp, Macklin blindsides D'Amore and PCO with the chair. You know, they do this whole thing again. They handcuff Scott D'Amore to the rope and force him to watch as they beat the shit out of PCO. You know, putting him through a table and whatever else stupid things they do. As Scott D'Amore's sitting over there. To Scott D'Amore's credit, at least he's like trying to kick them. Like he keeps like trying to like reach his leg out and kick them, and they're always just out of reach. Usually you just see the person just stand there like an idiot. Yeah, stop it! Don't do that. So Scott D'Amore's trying to kick him, and you know, whatever. And then they use the chairs on PCO. They put him through the table. They throw him down the ramp to a garage, and all right. So they take what presumably is that battery that he had earlier that he was hyping himself up with, and they take that and they, I guess they just uncork it somehow. I don't know how batteries work. Do they just have like a release plug that's like, you can pour all the acid out if you want? So they pour it down his mouth.
Was it a car battery?
Probably.
I think there is something in a car battery that you can crack open and pour the shit out.
Yeah, okay. That's fine. Well, they do that here. They pour it in PCO's mouth. And you know, then Bully's like, you know, he's like, he's still moving. He says he's still moving like 20 times. And then he gets his lighter fluid. He double fists some lighter fluid and sprays it on PCO and then sets him on fire. And he runs into the camera. There's quite a few things about this here.
The thing
I do know where to start actually, but I'm gonna just pass it to you first.
Is it just me, or did the way he was screaming when he ran towards the camera seem so fake?
Yeah, that's just you. That was so real. It was very realistic. It's as realistic as Dead Body Island, and it's also like, yeah. Well, that's that. I of all the things I could take apart, I mean, yeah, I could take that apart, but like PCO always does that. That's all he does. Everything. That's what he did in the ring when he won the match, and he was trying to hype people up. He was just like, you know, he's just always doing that. Yeah.
It's like, where,
He's just always doing that. Yeah.
It's like, where, 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 It's
Yeah.
Dude, they need to evolve past that. He needs to take his character beyond that. I mean, he has done everything he can with that.
I know. A pirate. No?
Ooh, pirate! Fuck yeah! Maybe you compete with Bret Hart.
Zombie pirate. those Pirates of the Caribbean movies made like $50 billion. So a zombie pirate, surely, it's just the next money, right? You just have to add a funny hat. That's all you really need to do. You don't really have to change much else. Yeah. So go ahead, continue.
So you're gonna have you have two dudes jump
like
one
it.
guy,
Yep.
shove battery acid down his throat,
Mm-hmm.
and set him on fire. Nothing happens. Like,
And when you say nothing happens,
no,
Wait.
like if if Demore would have said like, I'm going to talk to Santino, I'm going to talk to Anthem Management, we're going to see what kind of legal actions we can take against this, but right now I need to go take care of my friend at the hospital. That's one thing. If they would have covered it with that, all right, this actually would have actually made sense. But it's like, no, I need to go be with PCO.
yeah.
Like, all right, there's your hook for next week. See what kind of legal ramifications there are for what they did. That could actually have been a hook.
Could have.
But they completely dropped the ball. And the fact that it was even as ridiculous as it was. I mean, we've seen people get set on fire before. We saw Kane set JR on fire. Of course, that didn't really make much sense either because JR just kind of just like, yeah, he set me on fire. Oh, well.
And they just sat there and filmed it,
Yep. Yeah,
But at least it was already an interview with cameras going, and it got out of control. Like nobody would have expected that. And yeah, it was way too much, and they shouldn't have done it. But at least they sort of set the stage.
Again, you can do stuff like that, but you have to keep an eye on every single detail. Like why isn't like you said, why isn't the cameraman rushing in to help? Why are the producers rushing in to help?
Well, yeah, even if we go back to just what was happening out in the ring in front of the people, it's another instance of where, even if Scott D'Amore is on a leave of absence or whatever, he's still office and no one came out to help. Not one person, not one wrestler, okay, starting there, how many people do we have to sit and listen to put Scott D'Amore over for all he's done for them in the weeks leading up to this?
And nobody helps him.
Not one of them
helps him.
Oh no, I was taking my boots off, brother. I couldn't. No, I was in the shower. No, I didn't see. I wasn't paying attention. I got an early flight.
His girlfriend's on the roster. Where's she at?
Oh, we'll get to that in a second. Bro. So yeah, even if we just look at what happened in the ring, nobody helped. Yeah. So,
like, where's the scene? Like, where's the scene of Giselle Shaw with Scott D'Amore? Like, hey, I got your back.
No,
but like,
no scene.
I mean, I get they're trying to make like Giselle a heel, but it's like you kind of have to throw your storyline out the window to keep it real.
Right. Well, let's be honest, nothing they can do can save this or keep it real. Like, there's no real way to do this, so they just should never have done it.
Exactly.
But yes, to your point, anybody that knows would be thinking about that. So I guess they're just assuming it's not common knowledge. And if you want to know that there's any sort of connection between these two, you're just gonna have to look on their social media around, whenever they post pictures in ugly Christmas sweaters or whatever.
Again, I consider social media like if a wrestler or somebody who is on screen is posting on social media, that's part of the story. That's part of what's on camera. Like if you're making it visible to the public, it's part of the story.
Some would say. All right. Well,
like that's one of the things. Like that always like bothered me about wrestling. It's like when you like you're trying to sell wrestling as real, but when you ignore reality, and it insults the people's intelligence. Like anything you can easily Google search, like and you ignore it. Like I'm sorry, that just takes me completely out of it.
Yeah. Well, I guess they expect, and I there must be some precedent for this. I guess they don't expect fans to think too hard. I guess they think that people are just like you said, hey, this is a parody of wrestling. We are not supposed to take it too seriously. Just do whatever you want. Set a guy on fire, pour battery acid down his mouth. Nobody needs to help. There doesn't need to be even a semblance of realism. Hey, there's a Starbucks cup in the Game of Thrones scene. We don't need to erase that out of there digitally. Just leave that.
I cannot tell you how many conversations I've had with promoters where it's like, where I've tried to say like, we need to like pay attention to this, and they've said, it'll go over the crowd's heads. They won't notice. Like, no, they are way smarter than that. You need to give them more credit than what you're giving them.
Yeah, you don't need to book for the lowest common denominator. You need to book for all the people that will pick it apart, so that way the lowest common denominator can't hear them picking it apart.
Exactly.
Because they will listen to it eventually if they hear it enough. You know? It's like...
Exactly.
All right, so just to recap, in case anybody, kind of lost all this. So, number 1, filmed crime, which we all love. It's a good bingo square. You can probably check it off every single show, every single week.
And you know what? This would actually make great material. You have the whole courtroom scene. You have the talking with the lawyers and the legal counsel of how to handle this. Like, that's material.
Mm-hmm. Okay, speaking of material, you may have noticed a continuity error when PCO is thrown down the ramp and through the door. When we join the action in progress on the other side, he's got a... he managed to somehow, while he was rolling down the ramp, he managed to put on a much heavier fire-resistant coat that had like an insulation inside, a very clear insulation, excuse me. So now like we're just expected to not pay attention to this either.
Yeah, I'm sorry, bro. It's gonna suck. You're wrestling in that. Let's keep the match short, and we'll go right to our finish. That's all you had to do. All you had to do.
Yep. Just wrestle your match in your coat. But no. So, okay, filmed crime, magic coat, magic appearing coat. Number 3. Okay, so this is going to be a little difficult to explain. So bear with me. But in the how do I explain this? Where do I start explaining this?
Oh boy. I don't think there really is a way you can explain it. Just like, all right, here's what we saw.
Well, that's exactly it, because this is the commentary clip of Matthew Raywald doing the golf announcer call over this, right? And I'm just like,
yep.
Okay, so he's doing this clip he's doing this clip where he says something like, and what you see here, Tom, is blah, blah, blah. So this is when we're seeing it live.
That should have cut. Yeah, you should have cut the line right there. That's right. You're right there saying this is taped. This is not live. They should have just cut that line right there.
Yeah, but it goes even further than that, because check it out. This is what I want people to really bear with me while I try to explain this. So you hear this clip of commentary, okay, but this is the first time we're seeing it, right? So we as the audience are seeing this ridiculous, pre-tape play out, okay? Then we go to break after he runs into the camera. So he runs into the camera, we go to break, we come back from break, the announcers are on camera, they're acknowledging, whatever. They're saying, we just saw, the fake somberness and stuff, right? Then they're like, let's take a look. So they replay it. So like this horrible thing that never should happen, they replay it. And when they replay it, they have Matthew Raywalt with the exact same clip of commentary over that thing. So what does that mean? What that means is they synced up the commentary for the replay, and that was the only thing they did with that piece of footage. is sync the commentary to it, because the first time we saw it should not have had a voiceover at all, because he's saying the exact same thing. So not only did they make that mistake, they repeated it. They repeated the clip. So
All
you had the clip of him. You had the clip of him voiceovering the replay on the quote live play. He's seeing the future because they've somehow attached that soundbite to this audio clip. They didn't even have a separate audio clip with not a voiceover on it. They didn't even have the clip different.
Here's all you had to do. You could have had him like do the thing when they push him out the door and then go, we're going to break. And then when you come back, you have Ray Walt say that line and say, here's what happened during the break. And you show that he got set on fire during the break. Then that line would have made sense.
Yeah.
And then you show the replay of like, hey, here's what you missed while we were at commercial. And you show that scene of the battery acid and him getting set on fire.
Well, clearly they only have a clip of this action with Ray Walt's voiceover on it. Otherwise, they would have separated it. I mean, that is a level of production incompetence that is staggering to me, that you would even allow this to happen. And if you did make this mistake, if you somehow had this thing where you could not play the one without the other, then you have to cut the episode to where you have a break in between, and then you stick the announcer on cam before we ever see it. Like, they'll say, like, this happened during the break. We're going to show you this footage. This actually graphic, and we warn viewers to,
young kid, take your kids away.
Right. Even if you have to voice over the voiceover, like, oh shit, we fucked up. We need to come back in and re-record a couple lines. So Tom, just tell these people, blah, 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 and all this other stuff. There's a way that you could have fixed this gaffe, but the way they aired it completely exposed everything, because not only did you have their commentary where it wasn't supposed to be, but you played it again to further prove that you fucked up the audio and the production.
Now that I think about it, when they had Ray Walt said the first time, I think what they were going for was kind of like, I think they might have been going for a hook going into commercial break, which if that was the idea, good idea, bad way to get there.
That was not their idea. No, 100% they just fucked up somehow. Yeah. I don't know why they felt like they needed to. They filmed the thing. They filmed the thing separately. They had him record the voiceover over it. And they did not ever. That's the only copy they had. They didn't have a clean version of the backstage mutilation. Again, so they had to play it twice. Yeah. Again, because if you muted Ray Walt or tried to say that, you would have lost the audio from the scene. Right. You would have lost Bully Ray saying he's still moving 20 times. You would have lost him screaming with the fire. You would have just heard silence because you.
I'm sorry. I want to believe that they had the best of intentions. They just have the worst ways of going about them.
They don't have the best ones. Fuck these people. Fuck all of them. Fuck everybody involved in this. And on top of all this stuff. So again, just to recap: filmed crime, magic coat, played the voiceover in the wrong spot, come back from the commercial and played it again, and then this didn't even close the show. How are you supposed to follow this?
Exactly. This should have been the go home segment.
Now, the fans probably didn't see this. The fans there in attendance, whatever they saw was not this. They just saw him, like the last they saw of PCO was him roll down the ramp. And then that's probably, they never saw him again. So they have no idea that this happened until they probably watched the TV show. But for us, it's like, okay, so now we've just watched this. And I'm looking at the clock and we've got like an hour left in the program. So how the fuck are you gonna deal with this fact that you just completely killed a person, and then we're just supposed to continue watching a wrestling show. So how do we do that?
Right, exactly. Like, there's no way of topping that. There is none. You set a guy on fire. Show's over.
Yeah, show's over. So what they do next is Scott's coming through, and Gia asks him like about the Slamversary match. Like, how does this affect your match at Slammiversary?
And he's like, fuck that. I don't need to be with I need to be with PCO, which was the only thing that made sense out of all this.
Yeah, he said, I don't know, and frankly, I don't care. I just walked off. So that's how they do it.
That's the only thing that seemed real, is Scott D'Amore being genuinely concerned for what happened to his friend.
Okay, so we have that, and then how do we transition out of that? Yeah, here comes Giselle Shaw. I don't give a shit about what just happened to my boyfriend and his friend and all this other stuff. I got a match, so play my music. Like, it couldn't, not only could it have not been any dumber to transition from what we just saw into, like, and have the announcers have to call the rest of the show like what they've just seen, but you put the specific person in here that you mentioned as being like tied to one of the principals in this scene that is just acting like nothing has ever happened.
They really need to acknowledge that on air, turn Shaw babyface, and just do what it is. I mean,
but here, I'm sure, again, she didn't know that. She came out for her match. She probably didn't even know. She may have known what they were going to do. She might not have known it was going to be edited into right before her fucking match. Because her attitude was of, this is business as usual. Yeah. So even if she had no connection to Scott D'Amore on the program, you could still be like, man, I just saw a guy get set on fire. I'm not totally into my own entrance here. Like, so that obviously proves that they didn't smarten up any of the talent about this pre-tape or when it was going to be on in the show. They probably just said, it's time for your match, go out. So she goes and has her match. Bingo. And yeah, exactly. So we know that. The fans may not think about that, but this is basically like, for the TV audience, which is most of your audience, this is very jarring.
You need to have a producer like that's there at Gorilla, like whenever a talent's about ready to go out, be like, remind them, okay, here's where you're at in the story, here's where your character is thinking, here's where your character is feeling, and what's what you need to remember. Go out there and remember that when you go out there.
Sorry, Brandon, that only works when you're live. If you're taped, they don't know that. They have no idea what the editor is going to do, so no one can be there to say that to them.
Well, if you format your show and know exactly what each show is going to be before you go into the tapings and prepare, well, then you know what your character is supposed to be at.
Nah, you don't do that. I bet you anything, if I had to guess, I bet you there's a set of people that work on just filming the matches, and there's a people that work on the pre-tapes in the building while the other stuff is going on. Because how many times do we watch a pre-tape and hear bumps in the ring? So
right,
like,
you guys need to get on the same page. Like, I really believe you got that Impact has the talent to do this. They just need to get on the same page and know what the left hand needs to know what the right hand is doing.
Well, good luck, because Jimmy Jacobs in AEW. So, anyway, Giselle Shaw versus Courtney Rush. I'm going to be honest with you. I was just too distraught about what I just saw to concentrate on this match. Like, the whole time I was just thinking about PCO and, like, his teeth and his throat and all this stuff with the battery acid going. You don't know what that does to a human. I mean, none of us have really drank battery acid to that degree. So you guys, certainly, I'm sure you could forgive me, right? Like, you know my mental state. I was so concerned, and I didn't have any updates, and I went to the Wrestling Inc. website to see if there was any updates on PCO's health, and all I found out was that Steve Macklin had an undisclosed injury. So that's the other thing. Right, you did all this bullshit, and now this guy's not even going to be involved in the match because he's hurt somehow. So we don't even get the payoff of, somebody gets their hands on Steve Macklin, right?
Or where's the story of, hey, here's an update on PCO's condition after having battery acid dumped down his throat and set on fire? Where's that at?
Oh, yeah, no, we don't have an update. Well, he's dead. That's the update. Sorry. It's now a singles match between Bully and Scott D'Amore. That's basically what it should be at this point. So yeah, like I said, I was too emotionally distraught and fragile to pay attention to this women's match. So
and ironically, like, that match would actually work, because if you want Scott D'Amore to go over, you can have PCO make the Spirit of 76 return to get revenge on Bully, back his friend, and give D'Amore the win. There you go.
Well, I think Scott D'Amore is good enough to beat Bully on his own. I don't know if he needs help from a guy that's had his throat destroyed by battery acid and his back destroyed by flames. But if you say so, that's fine. You can punch up that pay-per-view.
Again, trying to salvage this wreckage.
Which, on that note, don't forget to catch AEW Collision Wreckage right here on Hami Media Group, channelattitude.com, with the boys from the PWC doing their thing, and sometimes me as a guest. But anyway, Giselle Shaw got to roll up with her feet on the ropes to beat Courtney Rocher, so there you go.
Yeah. I'll keep saying, like, I really think they need to turn Giselle babyface and, like, acknowledge their relationship. I mean, if you're going to acknowledge it on social media and put it in public, it's got to be part of the story. I'm sorry.
Dun, 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 dun. All right.
I mean, I get the character. I like the character. It's just, if we know the reality and we know the truth, it's hard to buy into. Like, I think Giselle, like, I seriously think Giselle would make an excellent baby face, like, with who she is and all that shit. Like, I really do. And it's coming from somebody who's of the same condition, who really feels the same way, who feels that.
So fat women are handing Kenny King money. Because that's exactly what you would do. Like, a fan wants a selfie with Kenny King and then tries to slip some cash into his waistband.
Now, if it's a couple of $1 bills as a joke, okay.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, and then they say his name and he appears. Joe Hendry does, yeah. And he says some stuff, and then they also have he's now added Yuya Uemura to his gimmick,
which again, at least it makes sense.
Yeah,
like they don't have any heat with each other. If anything, like, they've shown respect to each other.
Right. Also, Yuya's got to do something. Like, he's got to do something. They just keep having him go out and have matches, and he's got to just get involved in something a little bit different, and I guess this works.
Yeah, I mean, put him in something where he can start, like, okay, he's getting the reps in, he's learning, he's getting the time in the ring. Let's start building a character and teach him how to do that. I mean, it did wonders for Okada when he was at TNA.
Yes. Well, here it's, the joke is as Kenny King and Sheldon Jeans storm off, he says to you, he's like, how do you say champion in Japanese? And he goes, champion. So
yes,
which is not strictly true. There is a word for champion in Japanese, but nonetheless, It's funny.
I do like those things where it's like you have the the foreigner, like, showing up the nationalist.
Yes, even if that nation is Scotland, but it works.
Well, I meant he's showing up Kenny King.
Oh,
like, how you show how you show, like, when you did the whole thing, like, how you say champion in Japanese, champion. Yeah. Or go back, like, I keep going back to, like, what was it with Taka Michinoku and Jerry Lawler's, like, do you even know any English? Yeah, you're a jackass.
Right. Oh man, they love that word in wrestling, don't they, jackass? Been loving it. All right, so Motor City Machine Guns entrance, speaking of loving it, and then when we come back, we get Rush and Aldis versus the Guns. At first I was just like, all right, this seems to be cool. They're having a nice little tag match. The Guns are calming down a little bit and just doing some work here, and then all of a sudden this whole thing just goes way the fuck off the rails, and I was just like, I don't fucking care anymore. Like, Alex Shelley did the worst hot tag I've seen in such a long time. I don't even want to explain why it was so bad. I would need, like, the Stevie Richards vibe board to break down, like, every single point of how terrible this was, because I need you guys to see Alex Shelley during it. Like, I can't just explain what he did. you have to like see him. You have to see his face. You have to see his body language. You have to see all this stuff for yourself. I cannot simply do it in radio format. But if you saw it, you probably kind of know what I'm talking about. I would like to be able to enhance that for you. Unfortunately, we just don't have the technology, or we do, but we're just too lazy to do it. So never mind. But just trust me. He ruined everything, and at the end, ultimately, Leo Rush does get a rare pin on Goldberg. So that is the Starcade '98 Kevin Nash of this, as we see in the little chyron there, if you're watching live or on Channel Attitude in video. So I didn't like the match, but again, I was too distraught after what I'd seen earlier. I was just so concerned about PCO, and I didn't know if he was going to make it. So I really couldn't keep my head in this. But I don't know. What did you think? Did you notice anything else? You mentioned saying that you said Leo Rush showed a lot of what I was talking about in the previous week. Did any of that come out in this match to you? You're muted, still muted.
Absolutely. I mean, he did his flashy offense, but he did it in a way that was within his character, and it was like you still want to see him get his ass beat. Like it was like, watch me, I can do all this cool shit. Fuck you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. 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 Mm-hmm.
Like he has come so far, so far. And I dug the spot where they actually did the thing where he led them into the trap, and all this is right there to just cut him off, and we go right to our commercial break and go into heat.
Yep.
However, before we went into commercial break, for a second there, or for several minutes there, I thought the Motor City Machine Guns were the heels, the way they were getting their famous babyface heat on Rush, to the point where it felt like them, Aldis and Rush doing that spot together where they lured him in, felt 100% completely justified. All right, they're going to double team. Let's double team back.
Right. I wonder how that ends up like coming about, because you would think everybody would know better, so
Especially,
it would almost have to be like planned. But then again, maybe everybody's just they're so distraught and concerned about PCO, and they can't focus on their fake match.
Like
they were trying to put it together in the back, and they saw the ambulance, and or they didn't, because we didn't see an ambulance. So maybe they just, I don't know.
Like straight up the first half of the match, the Motor City Machine Guns were getting heat on Leo Rush. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, they're like several minute double teams, and yeah,
to the point where it felt like the heels cheating to counter their cheating felt 100% justified.
I couldn't agree with you more. Well, I could, but I'll just keep it low key for now. Yeah, I agree. It's just one of those things where this is kind of what they do, and I don't know if that's just supposed to be like a function of their character. Like, look, we're beyond the tag of baby faces and heels. You're just going to respect us for our tenure, and we're going to wrestle any kind of match we want, and you'll either be on our side or not, but we're just going to do what we've always done. Like, is that the instance here? Is that where we are? Or
like, it made sense when Austin was a babyface and fought dirty, because that was in his character. He was win at all costs, and people cheered him for it, whether he did dirty or clean stuff, because that was his character. These guys, it's like, well, we're men of the people. Do you represent? How good are you representing the people doing that? Like being just straight up heels and double teaming and cheating.
Well, the people these days, I don't know. Maybe very well representing the people of these days. Who knows? I couldn't tell you. I just know that, in terms of a tag match and psychology, it's not really traditionally what you want to do. And especially when you have such a clear distinction between who you should be rooting for and who you don't. If you don't want the people to look at Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin as sort of the heroes of this company in this situation, the tenured veterans, the guys that have always been here and will continue to be here, if you want them to appear in that way, then, and it's clear that you do, because think of how you're promoting these guys as like,
They're the top
Alex
singles.
Shelley, like I always a bridesmaid, never a bride. I never been the Impact champion. You're trying to engender sympathy for this guy, thinking he should get his, his accolades, his lifetime achievement award. We're trying to get behind him. If you didn't want that, then you shouldn't have pushed him as that. If you want him to be a dick, you should have left the belt on.
Macklin.
No, who did Macklin beat?
Nobody was vacant because they take off of Josh.
Yeah, so again, maybe they couldn't have gave it to Kushida back then, but like somebody else, or you didn't turn Nick Aldis, or whatever the case may be. If you wanted us to love him in this way, then why you just have him being like a total douchebag? Or don't they see it that way? Do they think that this is what people like? I don't know. Maybe I'm the one that's out of touch. Maybe I don't know anything about wrestling. Maybe you don't know anything about wrestling. Maybe none of us understand story. Maybe we're just two guys doing a show on channelattitude.com and we have no business in the wrestling business. Maybe we should just be with the Sean Ross Sapps of the world and trying to do run-ins with wrestling masks. And maybe we should be there with Denise Salcedo and doing react videos to CM Punk's promos. Like, maybe that's our lot in life. Maybe we shouldn't be criticizing these guys who are obviously great. And they'll definitely let you know how great they are. That's all I can think of. Maybe we're just the wrong people for this job.
I guess, man.
Or not. Or everybody else could just stop being a total fuck up and embarrassing everything that we tried to like improve and build upon. At least that's what I wanted to do. I didn't come in there with the thought of being like a professional wrestler. I just thought I'd like to improve upon what I'm seeing on a week-to-week basis. How can I do that? How can I get my hands dirty and try to help out? And that's what I was looking at, because I wanted people to be the way I feel now at home watching. I didn't want people to feel like that. And I was already thinking that 20 years ago. I had no idea it would get this bad. I thought it was bad then. Look at it now. So, I wanted to leave it better than I found it. And it's like, I'm like in a living nightmare right now compared to like what I thought back in 2003, 2004, or that around that time when I started going, I think professional wrestling may have lost its way a little bit because they're putting car batteries on people's testicles. Little did I know, we weren't going to get away from car batteries for the next 2 decades.
Well, to quote the great Randy Marsh, we didn't know. We didn't know.
Yeah. So, we didn't know, guys. We didn't know. But all we can do now is we can continue to try to help and improve slowly through this medium. I don't know if we're just shouting into the dark or if people actually do listen. Well, we were shouting into the dark and then lights came back on, so they obviously are listening and they are being vindictive about it. But what can you do? I guess you can just wait for AEW's 3 shows and watch them fuck things up in a much more entertaining way. And whatever you could say about them and their shows, they never poured car battery acid down a person's throat on camera.
At least
they have had some filmed crimes, no doubt, but nothing like this. So
yeah, they at least have that going for them. Well, they did have Matt Hardy teleporting.
Yeah, that was during pandemic era.
Yeah, that was
it's ancient history by now.
Yeah, that's kind of the experimentation era of like, okay, what can we get away with no fans?
Yeah. Liz says we can all send good thoughts to Dead Body Island, and PCO that he's going to be just fine for Slammiversary. Yes, if only he'll make it. When is Slammiversary? Please don't tell me that's next week.
That is actually this
Or this week?
Saturday.
Oh, fuck.
Yep.
I think the G1 starts this week too. Well, there goes the small semblance of free time I thought I had. In any case, we won't take up any more of your free time, but we do appreciate all of your company, your comments, and everything. We couldn't do it without you. Well, actually, we could, but we wouldn't want to do it without you. Well, sometimes we do, but we don't want to do it without you. Overall, we appreciate you guys, and we would like to tell you, if you appreciate us, where you can find even more of us. Brandon.
You can find me at Twitter at TransArchistTia, as well as twitch.tv/MissTia the Transarchist, and Substack at HMG Brandon.
All right. And of course, you can find me at Opinion Haver on all your favorite social media platforms. Thinking about signing up for some of those new ones that have been popping up just so I can take the handle and then never use it, like I did with such apps as Snapchat and TikTok. There can only be one Opinion Haver. So if you see me on those, you'll know that that is me. But if you see anybody actually active on those, that's how you know it's a fake. And be sure to, check me out on the Next Level Wrestling Review with Big Ray Hernandez every Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. We talk about NXT, which is terrible in its own way, but again, no car batteries yet. Don't want to jinx it, but we talk about that and some other things. And you could find me on a bunch of PWC shows, besides the Wreckage, which we already do here at HMG. Sometimes I pop in on that. But you can also find me on the Monday Night Machismo Thursday edition with Jimmy T from this week, where you're not going to want to miss that. And that's a free show. I don't know if he posted it, though. I got to remind him about that. But it was a pre-recorded one. But we had much better continuity than Impact did this week with our voiceover. So you could check that out whenever it eventually gets posted up. And then what else did I do? Monday Locker Room. I've been on the Monday Locker Room the past several weeks. I'm just kind of keeping the seat warm for RBV whenever his commitments keep him from there. I'm always on the bench, and I'm happy to come off and talk to the Ayatollah, who just recently lost one of his 3 belts, and I was not too happy about that, and neither was he. So you can hear all about that on a Fresh Monday Locker Room, and whenever you're listening to this, it should be on channelattitude.com for you. What else do we got going on? We got, so many things. Check out Wrestling with Rip Rogers. Just some fantastic guests. They've had somebody I know very well, Rockstar Ronnie Jonas, stopped by the show like last week, and they've also had Riot back on there, and they've had just a bunch of great guests. So check those out. I keep threatening to pop in one of these days, and I will, but until I do, just keep up with them. Free YouTube channel. Just sign up. Then you got Stevie Richards, of course. Stevie Richards always doing stuff. He's got his new Patreon going where he breaks down matches and everything, just like I would have done for that hot tag that the Motor City Machine Guns tried to pull off in their match. I would be happy to break that down if I had a vibe board for you. But Stevie does have a vibe board for you, and he's breaking down certain sequences. And on Patreon, he's got whole matches for you that he'll break down. So, check that out. Go to patreon.com. Search Stevie Richards. He's the only Stevie Richards that'll pop up. You'll know it. It's him. He's got his own YouTube channel besides the Stevie Richards YouTube channel. He's also got a separate one just for this, for promoting it. And he's got some samples on there. He talks about, he compares in 2 different videos. He's comparing taking Zoe Stark's Z360 finish to CM Punk's Go to Sleep finish, and the differences there in terms of safety and other things. So, and then he's also got so many other things. Big fitness show. He's got his product reviews, his sauna reviews, his workout equipment reviews. Him trying to do assisted pull-ups and saying, "Man, that doesn't work for me, brother." Stevie Richards got a bunch of stuff going on. He's more active now after coming back from life-threatening injury than he ever was before. So I guess that his new lease on life is really keeping him motivated, and I think that's a key thing that we can all learn, because we don't need to wait until we're on death's door to start getting the most out of each day and making sure that you spend as much time doing what makes you happy as possible, and spend the rest of your time trying to figure out ways to reduce the things that aren't making you happy bit by bit. You can't always just get a clean slate, but you can chip away. You can chip away at those negative things and try to reshape and re-improve your life in small ways that will add up to big dividends. And that's my motivational speech for the week. So thank you for indulging me and my partner in this lovely impact attack for Brandon. I'm the vet, and I don't have a sign off.